So, hello friends, this is from KPAPS, and we are going to start this channel with all the videos of pathology required at the undergraduate medical point of view. So, I'll be uploading all the videos of pathology, starting from the general pathology to the systemic pathology, ending on the neuropathology. So, let us share the screen. Like uh, in this video, we will be starting with the very first important discussion of pathology, that is cell injury. Guys, I hope you know from the basics of your first year that what are the important components of the cell, what are the important cell organelles present in the cell, isn't it? What is Warburg effect? What is microtubule? What is cytoskeleton? What is lysosomes? What is Golgi apparatus? All that you have read. I hope so. So today's topic will be about the cell injury. Talking about the cell injury, basically, this is the reason. This is the reason by which by which a patient is manifesting to us with some disease, isn't it? Once he has a cell injury, he will be manifesting to us with a disease, isn't it? So, no, from the pathology definition itself, he will be discussion itself. Pathology tells us that we are actually studying the disease, isn't it? Disease, we are seeing what things can cause a disease, what factors can cause a disease, and by which mechanism will this disease happen, isn't it? By which mechanism this disease will happen. That is the pathogenesis. And then we will be looking at in the microscope, we will be seeing the shapes of the cells of that particular tissue. Okay. Now your normal cell, if this is a cell, the cell is having a normal border, it is having a normal continuity, and it is functioning very nicely. There is no problem. All the cellular organelles, all if I talk about Golgi apparatus, that is packaging the protein. If I talk about lysosomes, that is actually doing us all the acid hydrolysis function. If I talk about the plasma proteins, they are phosphatidylinositol, phosphatidyl, isn't it? Phosphatidylserine, isn't it? So these are all the features that a cell is doing normally, like smooth endoplasmic reticulum. It is producing, it is, detoxifying all the drugs. It is, sequestering your calcium in the muscle cells. It is doing, hormone synthesis. All the steroid hormone synthesis happening due to the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. If I talk about the fatty acid metabolism, that is done by peroxisomes. If I talk about the oxidative phosphorylation, if I talk about the apoptosis pathway, that too only the intrinsic pathway of apoptosis, that is the programmed cell, that will be done by the mitochondria. If I talk about the heme synthesis, which is required for the manufacturing of hemoglobin, that is also done by the mitochondria. So these all the cell organelles will be responsible for a normal functioning of a cell. But what happens when the cell is getting injured? All the functional components of the cell, not all, but majority will get compromised. Now the degree of compromise will depend how much the cell has got the injury. If the degree of injury is more, definitely the more amount of the tissue will be affected, isn't it? Isn't it, my dear? So we have to understand first what is happening in a cell injury and which factors can cause cell injury. Which factors can cause cell injury, isn't it? So we should understand the causes of cell injury. We should understand the causes of cell injury. If I take, for example, now you have to do cell injury. I hope you understand injury. You are actually trying to manipulate the function of the cell. Okay, That way I can say injury. So if you see most common cause of cell injury is hypoxia. Most common cause of cell injury is hypoxia. The most common cause of cell injury. Now see hypoxia, that means I should understand the concept of hypoxia, isn't it? If I am saying that hypoxia is the most common cause of cell injury, that means I should understand what is hypoxia. Hypoxia simply means if I am not very nicely oxygenating the tissue. If I am not very nicely oxygenating the tissue, we understand from the basics of our physiology that once you are giving the oxygen, all the metabolic processes of the cell according to the biochemistry are happening very ideal way, in an ideal way, isn't it? So you because you are aerobic, you want oxygen, isn't it? You want oxygen, so your all cells will function. Your cells will function according to the oxygen supply. So if you are giving a less oxygen supply, it shift itself to anaerobic metabolism. But that will be very much fatal for the brain. A brain can hardly stand hypoxia for I think 7 minutes, isn't it? So after 7 minutes, the brain will go into permanent damage, and the person will go into coma. So oxygen is the important. The hypoxia is actually the most common cause. So that's what we are dealing in everyday life in the hospital. Okay. So if you are not adequately oxygenating the tissue, that is called the hypoxia. So there is very many concepts that I have seen that people are not clear that with the saturation of oxygen, with the anoxia. What is, by the way, anoxia? What is anoxia, guys? Guys, what's up? What is anoxia? Hypoxia, I told you, it is the we are not adequately oxygenating the tissue. What is anoxia? Anoxia means when you give a highest degree to hypoxia. When you give a highest degree to hypoxia, so that means if I was in the hypoxia telling that we are not adequately oxygenated, that means there was some oxygen. That means there was some oxygen which was oxygenating the tissue. But I am telling in the anoxia, the the state is so much worse that there is complete lack of oxygen supply. Okay, like happens in the cardiac arrest, like happens in the if lungs are affected will lead to respiratory failure, or if you are going to I can say if you are going to the higher altitudes, so there will be the less partial pressure and all that will lead to the anoxia like of scenario. So that is the thing you have to understand. Okay, now uh, you said hypoxia, sir. So there should be some factors. There should be some factors which are govern it. So it will depend also on the diffusion of oxygen. Now we know that this is the atmosphere, and atmosphere we are getting the oxygen going into the all the respiratory tract and reaching there finally at the diffusion level of the RBC and the alveolar capillary, isn't it? So what happens there? There will be oxygen will attach to the heme groups, and then you will be having the transport of oxygen. Now, once you are have breathing, you are increasing the partial pressure of oxygen. You are increasing the partial pressure of oxygen in the alveoli. If I take an alveoli and this is the blood supply, you are increasing the partial pressure of oxygen, isn't it? So this partial pressure of oxygen is getting increased in the alveoli. Now these are the pulmonary capillaries. If the capillaries are very nice, very much competent, if the surrounding area, if there is no pulmonary edema, if there is no fibrosis, if there is no pulmonary hypertension, then the things will directly diffuse from the alveolar membrane to the this pulmonary capillary. Okay, so now what will happen once the oxygen will diffuse? This oxygen will increase the now this will increase the partial pressure of your arteries. So I call it PaO2. Then people are confused always. What is the name? What is the difference between these? There is a simple thing to understand. This capital A we take as I can say like that. We remember like that. A is for alveoli, and this small a is for artery. Oh, Mary, are you able to understand? So now tell me, from PaO2, I am going to PaO2, small O2. So I am dissolving the oxygen from the partial pressure in the alveoli to the partial pressure of artery. Mm. So now I will be having the partial pressure of oxygen, that much partial pressure which has diffused. Now what will happen? The oxygen will go into the the RBC is carrying the oxygen and it will increase. Now what will happen? What will happen? Once you are attaching the heme, once you are attaching the heme to the oxygen groups, no, you are attaching the heme to the oxygen, isn't it? You are attaching the heme to the oxygen, okay, like this. So what will happen? Are you increasing the saturation of oxygen or not? In the hemoglobin I am talking about. This is the RBC and it has hemoglobin. Are you increasing the saturation of oxygen? Yes, sir. We are increasing the saturation of oxygen. We are increasing the oxygen saturation. Now tell me one thing. Now guys, please have a look. Please have a conceptual look. This is all the basics. What is happening today in the coronavirus also? See, my dears, what is happening? Oxygen is attaching to hemoglobin, increasing the oxygen saturation. Yes, sir. Very nicely said, sir. Can I say? First thing, there are two things. One is a partial pressure. One is a saturation. You should understand that. I think you know about these things. So, if there is high partial pressure of oxygen in the alveoli, the plasma, capillary membranes, pulmonary capillaries, I mean to say, they will be having, increased partial pressure of oxygen. That is called PaO2. This is okay, clear. But in the RBCs, you are attaching the, oxygen groups to the hemoglobin and increasing the, we won't now use the word partial pressure, we use the word saturation right now to make the things understand. So we say the saturation of oxygen in the arterial blood is increasing, isn't it? So can I say once this saturation is happening, PaO2 is decreasing? Can I say PaO2 is decreasing? Once I'm attaching more, the partial pressure of oxygen will decrease. That means now less oxygen will be, diffusing into the RBC. And should I say finally, no, can I say like that? Let me tell you like this. If I had a high PaO2, that means I was increasing what? I was increasing the SaO2, isn't it? I was increasing the SaO2. Easy. Now I am decreasing the PaO2. I am decreasing the PO2. The partial pressure of oxygen is decreased. That means less oxygen. We are talking about the diffusion. What is partial pressure? How much can diffuse? So if I am decreasing the partial pressure of oxygen in the arterial system, arterial, I'm using small a, please don't confuse. This capital is for alveoli. This capital is for alveoli. Now I am decreasing the partial pressure of the arterial system. I am decreasing the partial pressure. So can this, if I have less pressure, can I diffuse into the RBC? Can I diffuse into the RBC? If I have less partial pressure, can I diffuse into the RBC? I can't diffuse into the RBC. I have less oxygen. I have less oxygen. I can't diffuse into the RBC. So that means my saturation of oxygen should decrease. Are we able to understand what is the concept behind the saturation on all this business? Is there any doubt? Now, to check, you will be telling me, you will be also thinking, sir, there should be a gadget which should be telling us whether the partial pressure is there, saturation is there or not. That we are doing by the ABG. What is ABG? We are doing every day in the intensive care units. That is arterial blood gas analysis. We are doing the arterial blood gas analysis. Okay. Now, to get how much is there, things are present in the blood, things are attached to the oxygen, this hemoglobin. We have a term that is known as O2 content. We have a term that is O2 content. O2 content will be telling me what is the amount of oxygen that the blood is carrying and will also tell me the HP concentration. and will tell me the saturation of oxygen and will tell me the. So isn't it a nice way to get an idea of how much oxygen is the blood carrying or capable of carrying? Okay, so what is the formula of O2 content, by the way, from the physiology? Yeah, O2 content is equal to, we take the hemoglobin in gram per deciliter and we multiply it by 1.34 into saturation of O2 plus PaO2 into 0.003. This is what we use. Now tell me one thing. If I decrease, I want the fast answers. If I decrease the O2 content, what should decrease? Or if I take like this, I decrease the saturation of O2, what will decrease finally? Please answer. If I decrease the saturation of O2, I will be decreasing the O2 content carried by that blood. If I am decreasing the PaO2, I will be decreasing the O2 content of the blood. If I am decreasing if I am decreasing the hemoglobin, that is anemia. That is anemia. If I am decreasing the hemoglobin, I will be decreasing the O2 content in the blood. Will I say if I have anemia, there will be more EPO production, erythropoietin? Can I say there will be more erythropoietin production? Because to be telling the body, please, I am not getting the oxygen that will go to the peritubular capillaries in the kidney will tell him, please, I am not having the oxygen, please do something. What will happen? You will have more EPO production. That EPO will go into the bone marrow, increase the erythropoiesis. How people can understand? So can I say a decrease in oxygen content will lead to increase EPO? Can I make a relation like this, my dear? If I am decreasing the O2 content, that means I will be increasing the erythropoietin synthesis. Who synthesizes erythropoietin? Kidney. Are you able to understand? Pulse oximeter. See, guys, the basic, we are using this to check what we are checking it, saturation, SpO2, isn't it? Can you see the SpO2, the saturation here? Yeah, isn't it? So, actually, this saturation is not, don't think it's 197, okay? It's not 197, okay? The saturation is not like that, okay? There are only the highest values, 100. So, basically what is it doing is, this is called a probe, actually, okay? This is a probe, and what we are doing is we apply it on the fingernail bed. We apply this probe on the fingernail bed, and or you can use it on the toenail bed also, okay, or you can use it on the air lobule also, or you can use it on the tip of the nose. So there are some people in this world who keep it strictly to the finger nail bed, but you can apply it to the toenail bed, the ear lobule, the tip of the nose. Okay, what is the normal saturation of the oxygen in the blood? That is 95 to 98%. That's what you are taking right now in this coronavirus days. So what actually is the principle of pulse oximeter? I want to teach you it here only, or because we have talked about saturation and everything. Basically, we are putting it on the finger, so this should be a non-invasive test, isn't it? Non-invasive test. We are checking the saturation of oxygen. Okay. What happens is it works on a principle that is known as Beer-Lambert law. It works on a principle called Beer-Lambert law. It says, what does the Beer-Lambert law say? Beer-Lambert law says that different solvents will absorb the infrared light at different wavelengths. So how to remember? Will absorb different solvents will absorb infrared light at different wavelengths. So this pulse oximeter is actually emitting two light wavelengths. It is emitting a red at 660 nanometer and infrared at 940 nanometer. Now, what is the principle? Why I made to remember this? See, the oxyhemoglobin. oxyhemoglobin, the hemoglobin which is conjugated to oxygen, that is the oxyhemoglobin. Okay, oxygenated, you have oxygenated the hemoglobin, that is oxyhemoglobin. So if I talk about the oxyhemoglobin, oxyhemoglobin absorbs more infrared light. Oxyhemoglobin absorbs more infrared light. Okay. If I talk about the deoxyhemoglobin, it absorbs more what light? Red light. Deoxyhemoglobin absorbs more red light. Now we take the ratio of red to infrared light. Okay, don't think it's only the infrared. Here it's red also. Okay, you have to write the red also. I forgot to tell you. So Beer Lambert law is saying that what different solvents are absorbing infrared and red light at different wavelengths. At different wavelengths. So if I say oxyhemoglobin is absorbing more infrared light and deoxyhemoglobin is absorbing more red light, and if I take the ratio of red to infrared light, we convert this value. This is what pulse oximeter is doing. It is actually dividing the two values. It is dividing the red and infrared values because it has a processor inside and it is putting those lights on the finger. Okay. So if you have a higher ratio of red to infrared, if you have a higher ratio of red to infrared, that means you have more deoxyhemoglobin. Will you get now a low saturation on the hair or not? My dears, will you get a less saturation number here or not? If you have more, see, the concept is the mathematical concept. This is red, this is infrared. Red is what? Red is what? The ratio is more. That means red is more. That means red is more. Red is more. That means what is more? Deoxyhemoglobin is more. That means less saturation. Guys, are we able to understand the concept? I want fast answer, please. Isn't it? So can I say in the deoxygenated, less saturated blood, can I say the ratio of red to infrared is more, or can I say in conversely, red to infrared ratio is more, meaning thereby the blood is more desaturated. The blood is less saturated, isn't it? But this concept should be clear. You are a doctor, you'll be using this concept in the hospital. Okay? So you should know at least what is the mechanism by which things are working. Okay, guys. So this is the concept behind this pulse oximeter. Okay. Now there is a problem. It's not that it will give you 100%. Okay? It's not that it will give you 100%. The problem, the drawback of these oximeters is that it can't tell us about the dyshemoglobin, like you have meth hemoglobin, isn't it? Like you have meth hemoglobin, like you have carboxyhemoglobin, like you have carbon monoxide. What is carboxyhemoglobin? Carboxyhemoglobin is carbon monoxide is bound to hemoglobin, isn't it? So will it decrease the saturation of O2? If I have more carbon monoxide attached to the hemoglobin, will it decrease the saturation? There is no place for the oxygen. It attaches 200 times more than, carbon monoxide has a 200 times more affinity than oxygen. It won't leave the hemoglobin. It won't leave the hemoglobin. It won't give a place for the oxygen to attach. Okay. So in case of my all dyshemoglobins, my pulse oximeter is doing a false high saturation. Why? Because it is only checking the bound things. It is only checking the bound things. My pulse oximeter is checking the bound things. Now carbon monoxide is more. That means more oxygen will be saturated with carbon monoxide, not oxygen. That will be more saturated with carbon monoxide. But he is throwing the light. This pulse oximeter is throwing the light, and he is checking what is the bound amount of bound, this hemoglobin. Okay, I don't understand. So he will result in a falsely high value. He will show you a false high value. Are we able to understand? So this is, I'm talking of a pulse oximeter. I'm talking of a pulse oximeter. Okay. So what is happening? what is happening if anyone asks you what is carboxy, in case of carboxyhemoglobinemia. I talk about carboxyhemoglobinemia. The carbon monoxide will have, you should say in a technical language, that the carbon monoxide has the same absorption pattern as the oxygenated hemoglobin. So for you people, I was telling you in simply, you have to remember that it is like in bound way, in a mnemonic way. I told you it is in a bound way and it will check the bound things. So technically, if you want to say technically, it is carbon monoxide has the same absorption pattern of absorbing the red light as the oxygenated hemoglobin. Okay, and thus we will get a false value. There will be an overestimation of the value. Okay. By the way, I want to tell you a very nice fact that the math hemoglobin shows a fixed saturation. Math hemoglobin, if we have a math hemoglobinemia, the patient will show us a fixed saturation of 85%. Fixed saturation of 85%. Okay. So in that way, can I say anemia will show me an underestimation of actual values? Can I say in that way anemia will give me an undersaturation because you are having less blood, less hemoglobin? Can I say it will give me less, falsely less values? No, the blood is there. It's not that there is any disease in the lungs. It is not that disease in the lungs. The disease is where? At the blood level. And we are mistakenly thinking that this person is having some lung problem. My dear, he is having anemia, he is having less blood, he is having, then he should be having less saturation. It does not mean he is having any problem in the lungs. Now there at that time people start thinking about partial pressure, the diffusion. People start thinking about this PaO2. Okay, so that's not the case, my dears. It's actually you have to think whether you have to rule out everything, anemias and all that. You have to rule out. Then only you can diagnose a person is having any sort of respiratory failure, any obstructive sleep apnea, any severe, asthma, or any, or if he's under anesthesia. If he is under anesthesia, I can very nicely use the pulse oximeter. Okay. By the way, in some books, I tackled a thing. I don't remember which book was writing that. It said that mostly in our clinical practice, they see that the saturation of oxygen, the saturation of oxygen, when the saturation of oxygen becomes less than 70, these pulse oximeters become inaccurate. That's the finding of some people. They say once the saturation becomes less than 70%, pulse oximeters can. I hope you have understood the principle of pulse oximeters. And there are many things you will be reading it in the in your medicine part and anesthesia part, that if someone is having shivering, what will happen if someone is shivering? So he will be constantly moving his finger. That will lead to that also leads to a false reading because of the continuous transmission of that light. Or if someone is having a nail polish, if someone is using a nail polish blue color like the color pen, that will also show the false reading. Or someone has vasoconstriction, hypovolemia, or someone is skin color. But that's actually a thing what we are considering. But I'm telling you the things which are in practical, like the nail polish, the shivering, the hypovolemia, vasoconstriction. These are the things which you have to. So for this solution, what did we do? We made co-oximeters. This was a pulse oximeter. We made co-oximeters. What did co-oximeters do? They told us which hemoglobin is normal, which hemoglobin is abnormal. Okay, isn't it? So can we rely on the oximeters? Can we rely on the oximeters, pulse oximeters, in case of carboxyhemoglobinemia, in case of methemoglobinemia, or co-oximeters? What is your suggestion? Guys, doctors, what is the suggestion? What will you rely on? Co-oximeters or pulse oximeters? So guys, I hope we have understood the terminologies. Okay, if you have a revision of the terminologies, what is the O2 content? O2 content will be telling me the carrier capability of that hemoglobin. Okay, it will be telling me Can I say O2 content will also tell me how much amount of oxygen will be given to the tissue level? If it has taken that O2 content, can I say that how much it can give? It can give. I'm saying about the blood hemoglobin. Can I say how much it can give? That is also the O2 content. So can I say O2 content? Can I say O2 content is decreased in hypoxemia? Can I say O2 content is decreased in hypoxemia? Can I say O2 content is decreased in anemia? Can I say O2 content is decreased in carbon monoxide poisoning? Can I say O2 content is decreased in methemoglobinemia? Can I say? You see, if I talk about the SaO2, SaO2, what is the SaO2? SaO2 is talking, remember, see, my dear, look at me. SaO2 always take the hemoglobin in brain. SaO2 take the hemoglobin in brain. RBC, you have to take the RBC. Whenever you come across the term SaO2, think of hemoglobin. Sir, what is the definition? SaO2 is the what amount, what percentage, what fraction of O2 is attached to the heme group. Where is the heme in the hemoglobin? Where is the hemoglobin in the RBC? Where is the RBC in the blood? Okay. Now, if there is any problem with the F, now can you tell me which state is the iron? Which state can the iron bind to the this oxygen? Which state? Fe2 plus state or Fe3 plus state from your physiology? Yeah, please fast, make it fast. Fe2 state will make the is easily it can finally bind to the oxygen. But Fe3 state. So what is the name of the state? Fe2 is called the ferrous state. It is called the ferrous state. Fe3 positive is called the ferric state. Ferric state. Fe2 positive is called the reduced state. Reduced state. Fe3 positive is called the oxidized state. So do you want your hemoglobin to be in the oxidized state or in the reduced state? Do you want your hemoglobin to be in the oxidized state or in the reduced state? You want the hemoglobin to be in the reduced ferrous state so that it can bind to the oxygen very nicely, valency. A nice valence of iron is required to bind to the oxygen. If your valence of iron is not there, if it is in the Fe3 positive state, cannot bind to oxygen. And if my saturation of oxygen decreases to less than 80%, we see in the patients in the hospital, if the saturation of oxygen is getting decreased less than 80%, the patient will present to us with cyanosis. Cyanosis is the bluish discoloration of your mucous membranes and your skins, your fingertips, your earlobes. Guys, are we able to understand? So, my dear, first thing, can I say I'm actually this is the general pathology. We'll be taking it to I think 50 or 60 parts because I won't explain everything. So partial pressure of oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen. Can I say partial pressure of oxygen will lead to if I increase the partial pressure, then the diffusion of oxygen. If I decrease the partial pressure of oxygen, the diffusion of oxygen in the tissue will also decrease because PaO2. What was the PaO2? What was the PaO2? The PaO2 was telling me how it is the telling me how much oxygen is in a dissolved form. That means how much I inspire, that should become the PaO2. How much I inspire from the atmospheric air or atmospheric pressure should be the PaO2. Can I say can I say PaO2 will lead to P normally this should happen. Can I say PaO2 will lead to PaO2? Yes, I can say like that. Can I say this is actually telling me if I see anytime the patient is having PaO2 and PaO2, can I say he has a very nice capillary membrane in the lungs? Does the exchange is happening very nicely? What is here is here. What is here is here. That is the concept behind this PaO2. Is there any problem? Okay. So, how will the patient? This is the auto content which we will be understanding. So, we were talking that the hypoxia. If I have a less PaO2, then I will be having less oxygen, diffusible oxygen, and my saturation of oxygen must decrease. Should decrease ideally. Now tell me one thing. If you have hypoxia from the biochemistry, if you have hypoxia, I'm relating now the biochemistry. If you have hypoxia, you will have decreased ATP. You will have decreased adenosine triphosphate because you know ATP is synthesized in the oxidative phosphorylation. Oxidative phosphorylation is happening. I'm relating everything. Now oxidative phosphorylation is happening in where? Outer mitochondrial membrane or inner mitochondrial membrane? Inner mitochondrial membrane, the oxidative phosphorylation is happening. And we know we have a complex, group of complexes and the complex 4. Complex 4 is the place where you have the ATC and you will be having that oxygen acceptor, that electron acceptor will be present in the cytochrome 4. Now if you have a less amount of oxygen, there will be the defective or there is a defective oxidative phosphorylation that will finally lead to the decrease in the ATP synthesis. And once your ATP synthesis is decreasing, then we are in a problem. Once my ATP synthesis is decreasing, the game starts there. Game actually starts there. The big game. Okay. So the game I will be teaching you in the next video. But here I want to tell you if you have a decreased amount of oxygen hypoxemia and if you have an SaO2 of less than 80%, then the patient will present to us, the patient will manifest with cyanosis. Patient will manifest with cyanosis. And the cyanosis, what will be the other findings of the decreased saturation? The brain is also getting the less blood supply, so there will be confusion. There will be confusion. There will be tachycardia. There will be tachycardia. There will be tachypnea. There will be tachypnea, isn't it? The patient will present us with seizures, coma, and finally, the oxygen is less, brain tissue will die, and there will be death. Okay. So this is about all about the saturation. Whenever you think of cyanosis, think of saturation first. You can think of anything, but I am giving you a tip that you should think of saturation. So this was about the hypoxia, how hypoxia can do, what hypoxia can do. Mechanism we'll be talking in a new video, no other videos. So how why other there are also other things which can cause a cell injury. There are also other things which can cause cell injury. This was about the hypoxia. This was about the hypoxia, which was inadequate oxygen. Inadequate oxygen. There is also a term anoxia. Anoxia means complete oxygen deficiency, complete lack of oxygen. That can happen in a myocardial infarction. That can happen in a COPD patient, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Now, there should be also some chemicals like smoking. Your cigarette smoke that contains polycyclic hydrocarbons, isn't it? That contains polycyclic hydrocarbons or alcoholics they are taking that can also damage the cell. Or you have drugs acetaminophen, that is the paracetamol. I'll be teaching you this in detail, carbon tetrachloride and this mechanism. So homolytic fission and then that free radical kills the cell. Or poisoning diseases, iron overload, like you are doing a blood transfusion and in the blood transfusion you are leading to the iron overload that leads to hemochromatosis. Hemochromatosis, acetaminophen poisoning. Or take the infections, microbiology, inflammation, like the cellulitis, like the abscess, isn't it? So many diseases, microbial infections, viral, bacterial. You know that every disease, I hope as a doctor you know, that diseases are called, can be happening through to these things. So you can think of these things only. Sunburns, no wounds, any frostbites, protein deficiency, kwashiorkor, scurvy, no, also hyperbilirubinemia, Karmic terrace. But these are the ways by which you can destroy the cell. Talking just about one cell and that we take in a collective tissue. Are we clear today with the general principle that we require to understand the cell injury? So in the next video, we will be studying the moving this topic to the next level. And unless and until there is a suggestion, unless and until you don't understand how oxygen, what is the saturation, what is the terminology, then it's very difficult to you know get along with this topic, because this is the basic general principle of pathology. If you understand this principle, then you can very nicely relate all the systemic pathology with it. I hope you have enjoyed this video. And if you haven't subscribed to this new channel, this channel, I will be uploading all the videos about pathology and integrated pathology. I will be, uploading also some microscopic findings which I will be recording by myself. So stay tuned with this channel, and thank you. Bye bye.